Hey everyone, it's Amanda from Orange Blossom Bride, and I'm here today with Teresa from Get Out Custom Travels. She's going to talk to us today about something that's really fun, planning your honeymoon. I mean, after all the chaos of the wedding planning, you have something really fun to look forward to. And you want to make sure that that trip is going to be fun. You want to make sure it's not stressful, the planning of that, because wedding planning could be stressful enough. So she's going to go over 5 tips with us on how to make that planning a breeze. So our first topic is start planning early.
Right, that's the #1 tip, not just for honeymooners, but for travelers in general. The earlier you start looking, the earlier you start booking, especially for flights, that's when you're going to get the best price. And a lot of the promotions are released in advance. So you want to start planning a bit earlier. And I know for wedding planning, a lot of times honeymoon planning is towards the end of the planning process. At least that was what it was for me, because you're busy, setting the date, getting the venue, your coordinator, your caterer, because the wedding ceremony and reception, it comes first. So I don't think I booked my honeymoon until about 2 months, maybe 1.5 to 2 months before I got married. And it was a rush job. Like, it was so rushed. We're thinking about potentially going to an international country, but with all the chaos of wedding planning, I think I had over 300 guests, and I was trying to plan it. I lived in Fort Myers at the time, so planning it remotely. Thank goodness I had a coordinator to help me, but it was just like the last thing on my list. And I actually did call a travel agency at the location where we were going. We stayed within the U.S. It was a great honeymoon, but I just felt like it was more stressful than it had to be to plan it, and it could have been done a lot better. So, when you set the date and you kind of have a feel for your vendors, start thinking about where you want to go on your honeymoon, what kind of honeymoon you'd like. And oftentimes the vendors will allow you to place a deposit for your trip, so you don't have to put the entire payment up front.
Right, because you're going to have a lot of expenses going on as it is. So and that's another plus, that you can, the earlier you start, the longer you can save to get the honeymoon you really want, because there's really only one time to have a honeymoon. You can go on plenty of trips after, but it won't have that same vibe. So what about considering your geography?
Well, geography is really important. If you only have a week or so to spend for your honeymoon, you can only take off a week for work, and you're getting married in Orlando, you live in Orlando or Central Florida, going on a honeymoon to a place like Australia or New Zealand might not be your best option, because you're going to lose at least 2 to 3 days flying there, depending on what route. And really you're going to get 1 or 2 full days. And to see Australia, New Zealand, that is not even close to being enough. You'll leave the airport and see like one city, and then it's back to going home. So that's something to think about. Maybe for a week or less, something like the Caribbean might be better, or Central America. A cruise is also a really great option for you to get from one place to another. And you can even maybe do like a week in Europe, maybe like the UK or Ireland. Like, that's a great destination option for a short honeymoon. Another thing about geography to keep in mind is where the destination is located, whether it's the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere, because our weather is different. It's opposite. So if you're getting married in the summer and you want to vacation somewhere warm, Argentina might not be your best option. So you want to keep that in mind as well when you're thinking about your destination of where you want to go.
Very good. And what about knowing your budget?
Budget is definitely a huge portion of the discussion. If you have a lower budget, something to consider is the flights are going to eat a large portion of your budget. So if you have a lower budget, flying someplace far might not be your best option. Or look into maybe using credit card points for your flights. And another option to kind of up your budget is if you have everything you need for your home already. For your registry, you might not need that 3rd vacuum cleaner. You can instead use something called a honeymoon registry, where your guests can gift you funds towards your honeymoon, so that it can kind of help pay for the trip that you and your fiance want to take.
Very good. And sticking on the budget topic, what about like cruises? Would you say that that's a good budget? If you're trying to save,
right?
We have ports on both sides.
Exactly.
So.
That's a really great way to keep your budget low. we have the Tampa port, we have Port Canaveral, we also have Fort Lauderdale and Miami ports.
Mm-hmm.
And you can hit a bunch of great ports from the ones that we have in Orlando. You know, as far as Cozumel, Mexico, I mean, there are cruises to Havana now. I mean, there are so many options you can take right out of Florida. So, you know, cruises are very budget friendly.
What about researching your travel dates?
Yes, that's really important. That can also play into your budget. You know, there are high seasons and low seasons for different countries, and the best time to travel is what we call the shoulder season, and that's different for every destination. Let's just take the Caribbean, for example, because it's so close to us. Peak seasons, they have two general peak seasons. One is during the summer when the kids are out of school and the families want to travel. Another one is during winter because people from all over the U.S. and the northern portions mainly, they want to escape the snow and the cold, so they are flying to the Caribbean. So, you know, around that time, around Christmas and New Year's and maybe into mid-February, you're going to find higher pricing for the Caribbean. So if you want to save a little money and your dates are flexible, try and go during the shoulder season to kind of save on that part. And also before you set your dates for your honeymoon, make sure there's no big convention or festival occurring during that time. So anything like Comic-Con in San Diego, like the hotels were sky high in rates. So, you know, check those dates as well.
Very good. And then the last one we're going to go over is to use your correct name.
Yes.
That's probably something very easily forgot about because you're so excited about getting married. You're going to, you know, if you decide to take your husband's or spouse's last name, that can mess you up, right?
Yes. A lot of people, when they're planning their honeymoon, they're so excited to take their new name. So they're going to put in their new name when they book their ticket. But what they don't think about is that it takes some time to actually process your new name. And if you're going to travel to someplace more international, you are going to need to update your passport. So that also takes time, and it's a process. You go to the Social Security office, you also need to change your driver's license DMV, send the passport application with your marriage license, with your Social Security, proof of, you know, the name change, proof of marriage. And then they'll send you a passport within like 4 to 6 weeks. It's like the, you know, the average time it takes to process passports. So it does take some time. So if you're going to be honeymooning right after you get married, stick with your maiden name. So that way you won't have any issues while you're traveling.
All right, very good. Well, these are all very helpful tips, and thank you, Teresa. And we're going to have an article linked to this Facebook Live, and it's up on the website as well, so you can go back through, you can watch this video again. But I'm going to hand it over to Teresa, and she's going to tell us a little bit about the services that she can offer you to make sure your honeymoon planning is even less stressful, because she'll be there to help you out.
Yes.
So
Before I do that, for those that are coming in, I know we said 5:15, but we started a bit early.
Yes.
I just wanted to recap some of the tips that we had talked about in the beginning. The most important one is start planning early. Talk with your fiance. You know, see where you guys would like to go. Maybe have like 3 different options. Talk about what kind of experience you guys would like to have, whether it's an all-inclusive resort or whether it's something that you want, you know, something that's action-packed, full of adventure with hiking. Different people want different things. Some people are like, it's the wedding's over, I just want to relax. An all-inclusive resort would be a great option, or even a cruise. So start just having that discussion, and, you know, that's a fun part of planning is, you know, where are we going to travel on our first trip as husband and wife. So it's a really great thing to do. The second is to consider your geography. And how many days you can take off from work. So if you only have a few days, don't go very far, because you're going to be using those a lot of days for travel. The third is to know your budget, of course. No, if you have a lower budget, stick to someplace close, maybe even the U.S., or stick to the Caribbean, or even do a cruise. It's a really great way to save money. And also consider a honeymoon registry if you already have everything you need for your home. Oops.
well, that's why we're live. Things happen.
Yeah.
Let me go get the lights.
I think they look. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Sorry. And also research your travel dates. Make sure that your honeymoon is not encompassing an important event like a festival or convention or a conference. You maybe you want to travel during that time and go to a cool music festival for your honeymoon. That's great.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you might ask yourself why there's so many kids running around. And then
it takes a little bit of the romance out.
yes, when you're trying to like dodge people. And lastly, use the correct name when you're booking your travel. Even though using your new name will be exciting, stick with your maiden name if you're going to travel right after your wedding. It'll save you a lot of headache at the airport. And one last extra tip to add in is consider travel insurance when you're traveling or when you're planning, because you never know what's going to happen. No one ever plans for something to happen or getting sick on their trip. Mm-hmm. But the travel insurance is great for if you need medical help, if you get sick, if you need to cancel your trip because of a storm or whatnot. So that's something to keep in mind is, think about travel insurance for your honeymoon.
Would it cover something if this just popped in my head as you're saying that if you're hiking in, the Amazon and you hurt your ankle?
Yes.
Okay.
Whatever medical need that comes up, it'll cover that cost. Okay. It'll be out of pocket in the beginning, and then you file a claim, and then they'll reimburse you. Okay. But for something like heli skiing, it's going to be super dangerous, and that's a really high-risk activity. So make sure to kind of look at the different policy options that are presented. But
and so tell us a little bit about what you can offer our couples.
Yes. We offer, or I guess I'm one person show, I offer traditional travel booking services like flights, cruises, and hotels, but what a lot of people call me for is a customized itinerary service. These days, not a lot of people want to take the road everybody else takes. They want something unique, something special. So, if you are in the middle of wedding planning and you want to start planning your honeymoon early and you don't know where to start, give me a call. I can talk you through the different shoulder seasons or the high season, the low season, see what your needs are, and then we can go from there. It can be really helpful so you're not Googling everything. Google is great, but sometimes you can get really overwhelmed with the results because Google doesn't know you. Google will spit out whatever results come up. But for a travel professional, I get to know you. I know your likes and your dislikes. So that way, we can provide you options that fit what you and your fiance need for your trip. So, any kind of travel needs, just give me a call. I also offer hourly consultation if that's something that some people want to book everything themselves but want to make sure that everything is to the book, that they're not missing anything. So they send me their itinerary already, and I'll look through it and tell them, oh, how are you going to get from city 2 to city 3? You don't have anything in there. And so if you're doing it on your own, you can miss a lot of things. So that's a service that we can provide, but it's great to talk to a professional.
Exactly. And Teresa's wonderful at her services, and it gives you an opportunity to really plan this once-in-a-lifetime trip. Because like we said, you're going to go on a bunch of trips as a married couple, that's for sure. But there's only one time that you're going on your honeymoon and you still have those newlywed vibes. So you want to make sure it's as special as possible and as stress-free as possible.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Teresa, for talking to us today.
Fun.
And like I said, if you have any questions for Teresa, you can make comments in this Facebook Live. You can contact her. She has a listing under our vendor guide for honeymoon planning. And thank you so much for being with us this Tuesday, and we will see you soon. Take care. Bye, guys.